How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. I am going to do something this half hour, which I so often don't do, but I want to start this hour with a phone call from Greg, because boy, have I gotten this question from a number of people. And because this, y'all, I know, you know what? Let me just talk to Greg. Y'all can listen in here. Greg, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How you doing?
I'm good.
Hey, okay, so first of all, I'm a cancer survivor person as of April, and my prayers go out to your wife and yourself.
Thank you very much.
So I called my sister last night. She's in Florida. I want to see how she's doing with the hurricane. And she goes, oh, God, that political BS. So I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, they're directing the traffic. They're directing the weather, blah, blah, blah. She goes, have you ever heard of HAARP? I said, what's that? She goes, HAARP. She goes, look it up. Yeah. She goes, it's out of Alaska. So I Googled it while I was on the phone with her. I said, Jackie, this is geoengineering has been going on forever. They direct, they put silver in the clouds for rain, and the laser beams to direct the lightning bolts away from people, whatever. And she goes, nope. It's all political. They're doing this. I said, Jackie, let me ask you a question. What news station do you listen to? Fox, NBC, CBS? She goes, none of them. I said, do you like Sean Hannity? She goes, no, I hate him. I said, well, who do you listen to? She goes, Tucker Carlson. I said, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. She goes, no, you don't want to go there with me. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to start a fight. So that's the reason I called. She's a conspiracy theorist, and she won't get off it, and she's just heavy into it.
Oh, so, man, I feel bad for you in this case. So what do you essentially? How do you do? First of all, can I just say, I can just be fed up with people and this sort of stuff, but if they're family first, no reason to burn bridges with members of your family because you got a family member who believes in some sort of conspiracy theory. If it's not impacting directly your relationship, don't burn out your relationship with them.
No, it doesn't unless I go there and continue on. But I usually just divert and say, okay, never mind. Let's just keep going with our lives.
Yeah, I hate to hear these stories because you're not alone in this.
Right.
My goodness, do I get this a lot from people, and they're just like they're gobsmacked that they've got a brother, a sister. Oftentimes, it's a parent who has just started because they listen to this one person. Right. And they believe these things. And, I got to tell you, I take probably too seriously for some people, and I am a terrible sinner. But I really do believe this is kind of like I've been blessed with this as a pulpit. I had a seminary professor one time who said, there's no reason for you to have to preach on a Sunday. You preach 5 days a week on the radio. And right. I mean, the Bible is very clear that if a preacher leads someone astray, they are going to burn in hell. And I take that admonition very seriously, but there are a lot of people who don't see it that way. And they are leading people terribly astray with a bunch of lies, and it pains me to see. So what do? There's not a lot you can do. If you're a believer, you pray, but how do you talk to this person? One, avoid it if you can. And be firm that you disagree, you don't believe, and they don't want to be challenged, so they're not going to challenge you. But set that boundary that you just don't believe this stuff. And when they start asking questions about why, honestly, I mean, you can start turning their argument on them. Like, for example, I suspect your sister does not believe in man-made climate change. So if your sister doesn't believe in man-made climate change, you can just say, so you don't believe in man-made climate change, but you believe they can steer the hurricane. Why? How can you believe in one and not the other? Ultimately, the logic begins to collapse in on itself for most people, and they find their way out of it. But honestly, family members I have who are like this, I don't engage with them on that. I try to find common ground on other issues because I believe the relationship is important. Now, I will tell you, and this isn't for you because you're clearly talking to your sister, but there are some people who there is no reason to continue to have relationships with the crazy, terrible people in your life who bring too much drama, family or not. That's not for you. It's for others who are dealing with that. But man, I feel for you because I don't have any family members who have gone down that road, but I've got several friends who have. One was a very long-time friend who went down the QAnon rabbit hole with the pedophile, devil-worshipping pizza parlor in Washington, D.C. sort of stuff.
Oh, geez. So the HARP, is that government? Is that what you're talking about? The engineering HARP, or no?
Yeah. So HARP and there is a massive conspiracy theory about HARP. What essentially is it uses high frequency radio transmissions to spark the auroras and to study the aurora borealis up in Alaska. And there have been all sorts of conspiracy theories about HARP over the years, that somehow it's affecting the weather, things like that. Right. It's really not. It operates like 3 to 4 times a year, typically during big magnetic storms. And the whole research portion of this is, our global axis is actually tilting. So at some point, and we don't know when it's going to happen, the North Pole is going to become the South Pole, and the South Pole is going to become the North Pole. We don't know when it's going to happen. The axis wobbles because of, we think, a solid core in the middle of the Earth that spins, and HARP, it affects the ionosphere and it affects the magnetic waves that come from the sun. And so the HARP project actually studies all of this stuff. It's kind of useful information because the day that our poles switch from north to south is going to be a bad day on planet Earth for everybody. We don't. Right. It could be 1,000,000 years from now, 1,000 years from now. We don't know when it's going to happen, but it's the accumulation of research to try to figure it out. But that's what HARP is. And you want to talk about go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, Greg? There are probably more conspiracy theories about HARP than anything else in the Northern Hemisphere.
Okay. All right.
But also, I'll tell you, part of it is people don't understand it, and the things they don't understand is where they bring up the conspiracy theories. So, look, I thank you for the phone call. I appreciate it. Y'all, I wanted to start with Greg because I have gotten this from so many people. What's so funny is, having talked about this now the last couple of days, like, for example, Marjorie Taylor Greene is out today with a tweet documenting how the government controls the weather. And there are people who do believe these things. I actually don't know that she does. What I do know is that there is this postmodern Marxism that is on the left and the right these days. Marxism is not just like the Nazis that were actually kissing cousins of the communists, and they're considered to be on the right of the spectrum by a bunch of communists who wrote the history books. But the Nazis and the communists pretty much kissing cousins. Marxism itself as a philosophy into postmodernism doesn't apply to the left. It comes from the left, but there are people on the right and the left who embrace it because of this. Ultimately, what Marxism is about is it sees the entire world through power dynamics. If you're a Marxist, you see power dynamics like, for example, Marxists see the family relationship, parent to child, as a power relationship. They reject the idea of the nuclear family, and instead the parents produce the children for the state and have care of the children for the state. And if the parents are not advancing the interests of the state with their children, then the state can take the children away. There's an undertone, if you're listening carefully to how I described it, to some of these Christian nationalist guys who believe we should have a Christian nation and parents must raise their children with these Judeo-Christian values, or the state might take away the kids and give them to a better Christian family or some such. It's actually postmodern Marxism is what we're dealing with on the left and the right. And the way you can identify this is their chief concern power in politics? Like, for example, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a progressive on the right. She looks at this nasty hurricane, Milton, descending on Florida and sees it through the lens of power. Not the power of the hurricane, but political power. This hurricane could disrupt the right to vote in Florida. It could therefore give the Democrats an advantage. Therefore, the government must be in charge of it. It's all about power. It is Marxism from the right, progressivism on the right. It's about power dynamics. And as people get, you need to understand this, and this is a phrase that's going to blow some of your minds, and some of you may immediately turn off your brains when I say it, but I want you to understand what I'm talking about. All of life is theology. What is theology? Theology is the science of living well. That was an old definition from the 1700s for theology, is the science of living well. Not in terms of health, but in terms of world. Or you can say it's the science or study of God, the science and study of religion. Theology is the science and art of living well. Everybody's life is theological. You have a worldview. At the end of the day, that worldview sets who your God is. If you become detached from an actual divine deity, whether it's Allah, Buddha, God, you name it, or you detach yourself from Allah, God, Vishnu, whatever, your theology then breaks with your divine, and it goes somewhere else. And more often than not, what happens is it goes to politics, because if you give up the power of the divine, all you have left is earthly power. And how does earthly power manifest itself? In government. And once you've broken with the theology of the divine to the theology of government, then your brain is ripe for conspiracy theories. Because now what you do is you take the power of the divine and you apply that power to government. So God tells Job, and Job, where were you when I created all this stuff? Who has the power to unleash the lightning and the hailstones? Well, if your theology is God-based, only God can do that. But when you've broken your theology with God and applied it to government, well, now the government can release the hailstones and the lightning and the hurricanes. And what postmodern Marxism wants you to do is to break your theology and build it around government and make it about power. And then what postmodern Marxism wants is the clash of power. Because what Marxists ultimately believe in is to provoke ultimately a revolution and an upheaval of government through undermining existing power structures. So when someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene comes along, for example, and says the government's steering these hurricanes into Florida, she doesn't really believe it per se, but if she can get you to either believe it or say it unironically, then she knows she's got you on her side. And she can then wield that power of the people willing to say nonsense. It's like on the left, they want you to say that the girl has become the boy, and anyone who doesn't is a heretic. It's not about the truth. It's about the control and the power to get people to say stuff that they inwardly know isn't true. It's a dangerous game they're all playing. But what it is at the end of the day is about who gets to control the power. And in the process, they're taking advantage of vulnerable people and convincing them of things that are not so, and they don't care about those people because those people in Marxism are just a means to an end. They are not a human being created in the image of God. AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry. Everybody's talking about it. Billions of dollars invested, so buckle up. The problem is AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less like Uber, 8x8, Databricks, Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson, oracle.com/Erickson. Go check them out today. Confession, I nearly just had a panic attack. My kid came to the office to bring me coffee. She's a good kid. She clearly wants to be in the will, and we're hanging out and we're talking. I'm like, I may be at a commercial break, but thankfully I was not. I got here back in time. Goodness. By the way, can I just say, so they've got these, first of all, like Jim Cantori and these guys from the Weather Channel and stuff. I just don't quite understand what possesses a person to want to go hang out when a Category 4 storm is bearing down on a coast and say, hey, I'm going to stand here and watch this hurricane come through with this massive just pressure system or a wall of water coming with it that it's blowing, and we're telling everybody else, if you stay here, you're going to die, but doggone it, I'm going to stay. And part of me does wonder, like, people see this stuff on TV, these guys from these weather outlets standing there like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. I'm from here. The one that gets me, though, are the people who go down to Key West when one of these hurricanes is roaring through, and they go down there and they hang out on that I've never been to Key West, but they've got apparently the very last island. There's some post where I guess US 1 begins or something, and that they've, like, these waves are coming in, smacking these people around. There are people out there at the beach. Y'all, a killer Category 4 hurricane is bearing down on you. Move. I don't understand it. Now, so I've been dealing with we got a big pine tree, and it's in my neighbor's yard, and it's been losing branches, and all the branches are on the south side, facing his house, and all the branches that are on the tree are hanging over our house on the north side. I'm like, these storms come from the south. Maybe it's time to cut the tree. And he's, at this point, he's like, you know what? It's a healthy tree, but if it's making you nervous, go ahead, but please preserve the oak tree under it. I'm like, I will do. I think we're probably at a point in the season where I don't have to worry about it until next year, but it is I hate to cut it. I hate to cut. Y'all, I'm not a big tree hugger, but God gave us trees, and they suck out carbon dioxide and they put back oxygen, and we should not cut them down if we don't have to. And it pains me to cut down a healthy pine tree, but you know, pine trees in big storms, they snap. They don't fall over, and I'm really worried about this one snapping. Oh, I hate to kill a good healthy tree though. Any event, I got to move on. I need to tell you about Swiss America and their report, The Secret War on Cash. And this is important because some of you believe you can use your cash and you can evade the government with your cash. And actually, if you read their report, it takes less than 15 minutes on the secret war on cash. Not so much. Government's going to be able to track you. Swiss America has been the trusted leader in precious metals for 40 years, and they've been warning people about the secret war on cash. They're rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. They can educate you on protecting your assets. The report takes less than 15 minutes to read, and all you have to do is text my name or call them and mention my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, if you text them, 800-289-2646. Now, this war on cash actually includes digital forms of currency. It's growing, so read the Secret War on Cash report. It's completely free. All you do is mention Eric when you call or text 800-289-2646. Get the free report from Swiss America at 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. If you would like to be on the program, I am happy to have you. Now, I gotta move on to some other things here before we dive back into phone calls because, well, I've been negligent with all the other hurricane stuff and everything else going on today. So I want to talk to you about the ground game activities of the campaigns that I am hearing about and give you the latest lay of the land. I have mentioned to you that the Harris campaign has a better ground game. Here's what I'm learning about the various ground game activities. With the Harris team, they have most of the people in-house, and that being in-house is kind of an advantage because they put these people on the payroll. It's their full-time job, and they are fans of Kamala Harris. Concurrent to all of that, they are also having to obfuscate on the issue of the economy. And that is the number one issue that voters care about. So when a Kamala Harris door knocker knocks on a door and is confronted by a voter whose number one issue is the economy, those voters are getting frustrated with Kamala Harris. What the Harris team has decided to do is to primarily focus on existing Democratic voters, turning them out to maximize them. They've largely given up on these undecided voters, and they've given up on voters whose number one issue is the economy. They're focused on abortion, and they actually are focused on people who care about the cost of housing because they think they have a plan with this $25,000 government subsidy that's actually going to drive up the cost of housing. Selena Zito, a friend of mine, we were actually texting yesterday about the campaign. She knows Pennsylvania, and she actually, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I think she thinks that the Trump campaign is firing on all cylinders up there. She was on Fox News. She had this to say.
Yes, inflation has gone down, but those costs that peaked at 9% are still there. They never moved, and they've still moved up incrementally at 2%, 3% since that high water mark. And voters are feeling that pinch, not just with their groceries, not just with gas, although that's gone down a little bit, but also insurance costs and costs to build things, improve their homes. You know, everything is sort of at a standstill, and people are making choices they didn't think they'd have to expect to make because of how their pocketbook is being pinched.
That's my friend Selena Zito. She was on Fox News, and this economic issue continues to come up, and it's why the Trump campaign's ad spending has shifted pretty dramatically. The Trump campaign ads have gone to two issues. One of which, in fact, a buddy of mine texted me this morning, and he says, I think these ads are probably effective, but I feel like I got to keep my kids out of the room when I'm watching TV in case it comes up. This is the Trump ad on transgender prisoners. Kamala Harris raised money or Kamala Harris didn't raise money. She advocated for men who identified as women being in prisons with other women. Well, I'm sorry, men in female prisons with women, not with other men. And in one case now, a man has gotten multiple women pregnant in a female penitentiary because the man identifies as a woman but still has all the male parts and is having encounters with the women. And this guy is now advising other men on how to claim they're doing gender transitions and moving them into prison with women. Kamala Harris supported this, and the Trump campaign has an ad, and it covers two issues. It covers the crime issue, making Kamala Harris seem very, very pro-criminal, and it covers the trans issue in that it takes on the cultural issue of transgenderism and Kamala Harris using taxpayer dollars to fund the gender transitions of criminals. It's a pretty good ad, and it's hitting in, like I've seen it on TV here in Georgia. It's all over Pennsylvania. It is also in Wisconsin and Michigan. It's actually playing in Arab American communities in Michigan. He's also hitting the economy. Kamala Harris's focus is on, in her spending, abortion, and her focus is on the cost of housing. An abortion and the cost of housing. She's playing this in urban, suburban areas. You've probably seen some of these commercials. She's also doing the anti-Trump threat to democracy ads. She's playing to maximize the turnout of her base. He's playing to persuade voters to come down on his side. And the dynamic between the two, I think, plays to Trump's advantage. Again, I got to keep saying it this way. It is a tied race, and we're 27, 28 days from the election. Got 4 weeks left. Kamala Harris can absolutely win the election, but she's not doing things to win the election. She's doing things to drive out the Democratic base, and she's convinced that's what's going to win the election. And I don't actually think it is going to win the election. I think what she's doing is actually costing her that 4 to 6% undecided voters who will ultimately make the persuasive case of who they will decide the election, because they turn out and vote. They just don't have a number one issue right now. I think she's losing them. I think they go for Trump. Typically, the rule of thumb is that the incumbent loses the undecideds at the end of the race. They break towards the challenger. Trump is the challenger. And there's lots of talking points in the media that, no, the voting shows that Trump is the incumbent. They treat Trump. That's not really true. That's Democratic spin being parroted by the press. It's not actually showing up in the data. Now, back to the phones. Joe, you're going to be next today. Welcome to the show, Joe. How are you? Joe?
Sorry, on mute.
Welcome.
Thank you. So a couple things. First of all, I called to talk about your Marxism comments about Marjorie Taylor Greene and about Tucker. But I had to say, one of the things you missed in your criticism of the Kamala ad about the criminal that has people really upset, and it it frustrates me a bit because sometimes you pundits leave out some important parts. The criminal, it wasn't just a criminal sex change. It was an illegal criminal sex change. So it's even worse. And it's a small detail, but it's important. So
no, it's big, and I'll tell you, it's I hadn't seen the ad in a week. My buddy Matt texted me about it this morning because he had seen it, and I forgot. You're right. It is it's in New Jersey, I think. It was an illegal alien who's in New Jersey who transitioned, who moved to the women's penitentiary, who's now got multiple women pregnant, and Kamala Harris was like in an interview talking about how compassionate it is to move these men into women's prisons.
Right. Okay. So my point was, I heard you. Listen, I'm not a Tucker sycophant. I know he says some crazy stuff. MTG's kind of a firebrand who I think does more harm than good to the party. But unless I misinterpreted your comments, you were talking that they were like Marxists, similar to on the left. And I got to tell you, I think that's just prima facie evident that they're not Marxists. They don't want bigger government. Maybe power or fame or something, maybe yes. But I think that's where it stops. I don't think you could call either one of them anything close to a Marxist or a neo-Marxist or whatever. I'm
okay.
See it that way.
So I'm glad you called, Joe, because I want to be clear here, and for anybody who misunderstood, I don't think they are Marxists. What I think they are doing is very much like people on the right have decided we need to use the Saul Alinsky playbook against the left. They're essentially using Marxist tactics against their opponents, and that is the Saul Alinsky playbook is postmodern Marxism. I would call them progressives, not Marxists, and here's why I call them progressives, because in the pantheon of political ideologies, progressives don't put actually a principal idea ahead of power. Power comes ahead of everything, and I do think that Tucker and Marjorie their focus is on the acquisition of power for their side more than they have a particular ideological issue they're advancing. Small government, the right to life, right to keep and bear arms, those all are transcended by we want power instead of the other side having power, and we'll do whatever it takes to get that power.
Okay, that kind of makes sense, but I would say this, and then I'll shut up. I think that this election is a binary choice. If you're one of these people who said Trump sends mean tweets and he's going to start World War III with a tweet and whatever, the evidence is that he was in office for 4 years. And he did, all the pundits and talking heads said the tariffs wouldn't work, he wasn't going to do X and Y, he was going to start World War III, and he did just the opposite. And so my only point is, I'm not saying that he's the best thing since sliced bread and the savior of the world, but I just think in this election, it's a binary choice, and hold your nose.
I'll let you stay on here because I want to make sure you hear this from me as well. I actually don't disagree with you in that you're going to have either. I mean, this is in 2016. I didn't support Trump. I went third party, and I was like, you know what? I just can't vote for Clinton or Trump. I don't like either one. I supported Trump in 2020, and at this point, it's obvious we are going to have Kamala Harris or we're going to have Donald Trump. You may not like Donald Trump, but his economy was better. The world was not on fire. Israel was safe. Russia was not invading Ukraine. The Chinese were not on the verge of taking Taiwan. We did not have an open border with ISIS terrorists coming across an unsecure southern border. We didn't have any of that when Donald Trump was president. And the past is the best predictor of the future. And Kamala Harris literally says, wait, hang on. I got it right here. You don't have to take my word for it.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
So in my mind, I don't like Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, but I liked his policies. And she literally said yesterday, there's nothing she would have done differently. So you're going to have her, you're going to have him pick. And that's where I stand on this issue. And I understand, though, that there are people out there. Now, this is where, like, diehard Trump supporters really send me hate mail when I say this. There are people out there who will say, Erickson, you do not understand. I think January 6th was disqualifying. I think he is a threat to democracy. And I hate Kamala Harris, but I cannot vote for him. And my response to you is, well, then don't vote for president. Don't give her your vote, because she's going to interpret it as an endorsement of her agenda. Even though you don't mean it to be, she's going to interpret it as an endorsement of her agenda. So don't vote for her and don't vote for him. Just leave that line blank. And when you show up to vote, and after the election, people say, dear God, did you know that 30 million people voted in the election and refused to vote for president? We could actually win this election if we had a different candidate. People will pay attention to that. If you're willing to vote for one or the other, I say vote for Trump. But if you look at him and say January 6th was disqualifying, or I think he's a threat to democracy, or you name it, then I would just say, you know what? Go vote. Just don't vote for president. Don't vote for Kamala Harris. Just whatever you do, she's going to be a disaster. I mean, these 4 years have been a disaster, and she's on TV saying she would do nothing different. That's all you need to know about her. Now, I got to tell you about the Eden Pure Thunderstorm, because you can get 3 of them and you can save $200. You can get them for less than $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3 at EdenPureDeals.com. What is it? It's an air purifier, so it gets rid of dust and pollen. You do not have to get a filter subscription. It uses electrostatic plates. You don't have to keep popping in a new filter every 3 months. Like, I got a giant air purifier on my back porch. And that one, every year, I got to spend a ton of money on the filters. Eden Pure Thunderstorm, you don't have to. And you can get one for upstairs, downstairs, your basement. You can get one for your RV. You can get one for your travel bag. You can plug it in with a USB cord. You can plug it into the wall. It'll wipe out smoke odors, litter box odors, pet odors, dirty diaper odors, you name it. No odor can hide from the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. All you do is go to EdenPureDeals.com. You'll see a discount code box and put in ERIC3, ERICK3, at EdenPureDeals.com. Howdy. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. I am delighted to have you with me today. I want to take one last phone call. It is going to go to Ron. Welcome to the show, Ron. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks, Eric, for having me on. Calling about 2 things. One is your comments on Common Core earlier, and then the other one is Hurricane. I'm a former high school teacher. My wife's a middle school special ed teacher with over 30 years of experience, including teaching Julian Sophie's kids several years ago, Dr. James. But what she told me the other day blew me away, that I want to share with you. But first, let me update you on something about Hurricane Milton. I spoke to family down in Sarasota. They live down in evacuation zone C, and they just came out, I think overnight, with orders for everybody there to leave. So I reached out to them this morning and said, hey, you want to come on up here and stay with us? And they said, there's no way we can make it. They said the roads are jam-packed. The gas stations are all out of gas. There's no way, and we're going to hunker down. And with your news about the storm stalling out over them, I'm really concerned about, the potential loss of life that might occur as a result.
Yep. Yeah, everybody keep those people in your prayers.
Yeah, absolutely. Regarding the Common Core issue, my wife, I said she teaches special ed. Now, special ed, these are kids that are the slower learner ones, but she's really used to dealing with them. These aren't the bottom of the bottom, but these are ones that are just a little slower than the normal regular classroom kids. She told me that she had a conversation with a teacher the other day who's a former elementary school teacher. And she asked him, what are you all teaching on the elementary school level? And the teacher said, what do you mean? She said, these kids, they don't even know their times tables. They don't know how to read. A lot of them can't write very well. They don't understand punctuation. They're coming up here totally unprepared for middle school, and it's scary. Kids are lost, and what they're having to do is make accommodations for these kids. How do you deal with teaching kids that don't know how to read? Well, what they do is that they have to do things like read aloud to the kids, so they're not even hardly pushed to have to read. Part of the problem was that they eliminated phonics teaching years ago for this, what's the current latest best trends for teaching kids, which is never proven stuff. It's just what's the latest trends. And they don't care about learning outcomes. And it's really hurting kids a lot. So while Common Core, as you mentioned, is affecting kids on the top, it's also affecting them on the bottom as well. All of the kids that are even on the lowest level are struggling just to keep up with the average. They're expected to keep up with everybody else. They can't do it. It's a huge problem.
Yeah, look, I'm glad you said that. It's just become this disaster, and it's outpacing the ability of teachers to fix the situation. It's spread into colleges. It's getting worse at the elementary level, and there are too many local educational establishments, teachers, education institutions that have very arrogantly said, y'all don't know what you're talking about. We do. You're mischaracterizing it, and we're going to do it. Well, it's played out exactly as those of us who've criticized it have said that it would. Yeah. And I mean, I know several teachers who've left teaching because of it. Really good teachers who are like, I'm not putting up with this. The amount of parents I got to fight now because they don't know how to do homework with their kids, and I'm the bad guy, and I don't like it either, and they've quit.
Well, the other thing that they've really taken away classroom discipline. When I taught, I taught in side of Forsyth County.
I got about 15 seconds.
Okay. Anyway, hey, quick shout out. You had that make affordable groceries idea out there. I've created a bumper for that on forthisnation.com. So I want to throw that out.
All right, Ron, look, I got to let you go there because I am out of time, but I appreciate that. Great insight. Yeah, y'all, Common Core is, if you got a private school, you need to start pressuring your private school to ditch it because, I mean, we see what's happening in college now.